It is Pride Month, and once again the debate has reared up about whether kink should be included at Pride. Pride, which is in June to commemorate the 1969 Stonewall riots, is a month-long celebration and conversation about all things LGBTQIA+. My name is Josie Hess, and I'm your them friend and local neighbourhood pornographer, and I wanted to get some historical perspective on this debate and examine why kink should be part of Pride. Daddies, pups, and all. MisKnickers is part of the team at Our Kink, a Melbourne-based organisation that supports the kink community through education, communication and promotional events.
I'm MisKnickers, and for many years now, probably going on around 12 years, I have worked actively in the kink community and written about kink for various publications. I've worked in dungeons and helped people get to know the scene as a hostess and things like that. You know, worked at Sexpo and seen lots of different sides of the kink community, I guess.
Can you tell me about the tension between Pride and kink and what that's been historically?
Sure. Part of the tension is because obviously, obviously to me anyway, I guess, the LGBTQTI plus community doesn't want to be fetishized. And there's an idea that kink is inherently fetishistic or, you know, is there to make something sexual of what Pride is about. And although Pride may have to do with the way that people might sexually identify, it's not an inherently sexual event. It's more to celebrate sexuality and what that means to people rather than the act of sex itself, which kink is more strongly aligned with for right or wrong reasons. I mean, there's also an argument from the kink community that a lot of people who participate in kink don't do it for sexual reasons, and it's more about dynamics and relationships and things like that.
How much of this do you think is a part of the sort of sanitization and corporatization of Pride, which ultimately did start out as a radical gay liberation movement?
As a very leftist person who always has been, and knowing some very leftist queer kinksters, there was a lot of people who jumped off Pride quite a few years ago when the corporatisation and capitalisation sort of started becoming really kind of homophobic and fairly offensive to, you know, the community in the past, and then sort of thought that, well, you know, if we pay enough money and get a float and start handing out our pamphlets and making friends, you know, it's good PR and you know, what we call now virtue signalling.
I wonder then how important is understanding queer history when it comes to these judgments?
I think that for part of maybe the younger generation coming in, they might want to understand that the leather community and leather fetishists had a lot to do with establishing Pride in, you know, the history of the gay community and the leather community, and how that set the foundations for a lot of both the kink scene and the umbrella. I just don't want to say the alphabet soup scene. It has to grow with the times, but at the same time, the times have to respect where it's come from and the people who have made the path for this to be a thing in the first place. So I would love to see just some general judgments put aside, because it is an old debate that probably doesn't need to happen anymore. I almost see it as a little bit problematic that sexual politics and sex shaming is almost being it's almost being debated in people that are involved in Pride. I guess that's probably a little bit problematic for me.
If someone asks you why kink is important at Pride, what would you tell them?
What should be a feature for Pride is people being proud of their sexuality. Pride should be what the people at Pride make it. If part of their identity is their leather and their pups, then that should be fine and judgment free. And it would just be amazing if people could sort of realise that, you know, this didn't just magically appear. I don't know. I don't even know if kids these days realise that, you know, people died for their ability to be able to come out. You know, I know that it's not perfect and that it's still a really loaded, problematic thing. And it's not kind of like we've got it so much better than we did in the old days, but history is important, and to be respectful and thankful of, you know, whether these people have done it the right way or the wrong way. It's just being respectful that there's been people who've come before you who made really important strides for you. I think it's probably always going to be a really tricky argument, but I guess the people who are crying about, look at the children, should be thankful that they're living in a world where they can actually go to Pride with their children, because generations and generations ago, they would have been there without their children, and the heteros would have been walking past going, oh my God, you know, this is going to destroy my children. You know, I mean, that's kind of what I'm left with. It would be nice that if Pride of all places, we could have many, many more empathetic humans than not. So, yeah.
So I guess if you are confronted by something that's at Pride that maybe you don't understand or like the look of, instead of immediately asking for it to be removed, just have a Google or talk to your queer elders about why it is important. I asked MisKnickers to share with us some resources for further reading, which she kindly did, and I've included those in the show notes with this episode. Now, go. Celebrate Pride, kinks, daddies, pups, and all.